to the Family Office webinar, and thank you for joining us today. I hope that you're all well, in good health and safe. My name is Adel Mangour. I'm Deputy CEO of the Family Office, and I will be your host today. As usual, our webinar will be interactive, and we will welcome your input about the insights that our guests will share. We've been hearing a lot about innovation, transformation, the fourth industrial revolution, and our topic today attempts to connect the dots between organizational challenges in changing times and the effective leadership in guiding organizations. So I'm delighted today to welcome Mark Vernoeij, who is joining us from the Netherlands. Mark is a published author who has taught at some of the world's most prestigious universities, including Stanford, Berkeley, Columbia, and Wharton. Mark is a partner at the Think School of Creative Leadership. It's one of the premier innovative leadership institutes in the world. Mark is also a member of the think tank for innovation and leadership in the fourth industrial revolution at the World Economic Forum. Mark has a Master of Science in Systems Engineering. He has an MBA from INSEAD and a degree in Design Thinking from Stanford. He's joining us from the Netherlands today, but he's lived previously in France, Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong, and has been doing business in the Gulf for the past 5 years. So I will start by asking Mark some questions, and then I will open the floor for questions from the audience. But before we start, just give me a minute to just give you a quick overview of the Family Office. So at the Family Office, we've been preserving and growing the wealth of individuals and families in the GCC for the last 15 years. And our role is to invest our clients' wealth in the international markets outside the GCC. And our focus is primarily on alternative assets. We are licensed and regulated in 6 jurisdictions, and we're managing about $2 billion in AUM. The wealth management activities are conducted in Bahrain and Riyadh, close to our clients, while the asset management activities and investing activities are run out of New York, London, Zurich, and Hong Kong to be close to our investments. So many thanks for taking the time to speak to us today, Mark. And I would like to start by asking you, you've been working with clients on innovation and leadership all over the world for quite some time. How do you see things changing?
Well, thank you, Adel, and thanks for having me. It's a real honor. I saw the list of people that were here before. I realize your attendees are an impressive audience, so I can only hope to meet the bar that's been set.
You're too honest.
To your question, I think there's 3 things changing. One is the problems around us are changing. Secondly, the way the business is responding to that is changing. And that influences that leadership has to change. But as you say, the first question is what is changing in the world? And I was looking at pictures the other day and I found this image, which I really liked. This is how it feels, right? It feels like we're in the middle of a storm. So much is changing around us. And I'm not even thinking just about COVID, because this has been going on for quite some time. And if I think about the pressures that we have and that the clients that I work with, if I talk to CEOs of organizations, then I'm hearing them talk about these 4 aspects: users, competitors, employees, and society. So just to talk through those, if I'm thinking about users and clients, customers are forcing companies to be more innovative, to be faster to market, to have more products, more services at lower cost, shipped instantly. Competitors are innovating from all dimensions faster than ever before, and they're coming from different directions than we've seen before. If we look at employees are asking companies to have a real role, have a real voice, to be part of something bigger than themselves, to see the purpose of the organization. And then finally, society is asking us to do more than just create shareholder value, take responsibility, to really think about sustainability and all these other factors that are at play. And if I look at those 4 elements, then this kind of comes to mind as an image. I think our problems used to be complicated and are becoming more complex. And what I mean with that is many problems, the way we look at them, many business problems, we think of them as machines, complicated machines, like maybe our car or a Xerox machine that we might not completely understand, but if we have the right experts with us, we can understand cause and effect. We can take them apart into different sub problems. And if we analyze those with the right people around us, then we can understand how the whole thing works. There's some logic to it. Whereas these things that I'm talking about, the way that our clients react, the way that the world is reacting to us, the way that competitors are shaping us, these are more like a rainforest where if you remove one species, all of a sudden a species in a corner somewhere else kind of dies, right? If you change something over here, you don't quite know what's going to change over there. There's these weird feedback loops, and the relationship between cause and effect is much different from what we thought before. So that's a long-winded answer to your question of what's changing. I think problems are changing.
Okay. So how does this affect organizations and companies?
So I mean, problems have been changing all the time, and companies have been adopting and innovating as a result. If I take my country, this used to be my country, right? We had the United East Indian Company. It was a company that built ships to venture out to far lands to find wealth and richness and spices and all of that. The focus of this organization was on the inputs. People of rich families, wealthy entrepreneurs, they were harnessing wood, finances, and labor to build bigger ships that could venture further. If we fast forward, then very quickly we saw that companies said, well, the inputs are important, but it's more important to look at the outputs and the relationship between the two. So we had all these cool inventions coming up, like factories, factorization. We had things like standardization of labor. We had these pyramids and hierarchies coming up. We had people coming up with ways to measure time and efficiency. And of late, in the last part of the previous century, we had things like Lean and Six Sigma come up to measure efficiency and really make that bigger. Now, in the past 15 years, that seems to have changed. And just to highlight this a little bit, these outputs, for me, that's a little bit, the companies that could be examples of that are companies like a steel company. Take Tata Steel or whatever company you prefer. They're focused on efficiency, right? If you take the warehouses of Amazon, they're entirely focused on this paradigm of efficiency. And that's a very specific paradigm, but in the last 15 years, we started to see things change. We started to see that people said it's maybe not as much about outputs, and it's much more about the outcomes for the users. It's much more about what our clients really experience. They want innovation. This was, of course, driven by the demand of those users and driven by the competition. So people started focusing on outcomes. And prime examples there could be companies like, say, Google and Facebook that were user-centric. And they come up with these cool inventions like design thinking or user-centric innovation and lean startup. And if we take Facebook, that might be the primary example of this paradigm of thinking. Facebook, of course, extremely user-centric. I cannot imagine a product that does more, better, cheaper than Facebook. And at the same time, we're not quite happy about it, right? At the same time, society is claiming back space and is saying, hey, this is not the way to go. We want something else. So we progressed, but at the same time we regressed. And it seems like right now there's this new paradigm that's coming up. And employees and society are asking for different things. Employees and society are asking us and organizations and organizational leaders to focus on the impact, not just on the resources being used or the inputs, not just on the outputs and efficiency, not just on the user-centricness of their products and the experience, but on the impact on the world. Be that climate, be it right now how they're dealing with COVID, be it Black Lives Matter as a movement, whatever that is. We're having really a new innovation that's coming up. And prime companies here could be companies like Unilever and Patagonia, examples of companies who are taking purpose as their main goal. Patagonia wants to create products that really, really last long and that are as good for the planet as possible. Unilever wanted to reduce its footprint. And if I go back to that image that I showed earlier, the complicated and complex, then I think that those first two paradigms that I discussed, the inputs and the outputs, those are in the complicated domain. Whereas where we are now, we're really seeing those companies move to innovation and systems change as elements or as response to these complex questions. So that's how I see that organizations are changing and responding right now.
All right, great. I really like the way that you have presented these pictures, because in the back, it seems the picture alone explained a lot of things while you were talking. And filled in many gaps, like the picture of the CEO of Facebook being being questioned, etc. So we have many leaders on this webinar. They're leading organizations that are dealing with constantly changing problems. How do you advise them to move forward with this?
Yeah, I like this quote of a psychologist. His name is Bob Keegan, and he said this. He said, the general rule seems to be that the level of consciousness of an organization cannot exceed the level of consciousness of its leader. Basically, if you want to upgrade your organization, you need to upgrade your leadership. And this gentleman works in a field that's called developmental psychology. And in that field, what they figured out is that people change in very distinct steps already from when we're very young. So babies think they are the world. When you show a baby something, you remove it from its field of vision and you put it back. It's magic, right? And we've all seen that in our kids or in our cousins. So they believe they are the world. But at some point, they transform, and all of a sudden they see that these are objects out there in the world and they can manipulate them. They can play around with them. They can change them. So all of a sudden there's a real step change in how they think. At that point, they are at the mercy of their own feelings and needs. So when they feel hungry, they don't feel hungry, they are hungry. And they are going to take the sandwich of their brother and sister, right? They don't feel mad, they are mad, and they're going to hit something or someone. Seems like they can't really change that in any way. So what you see is these changes are almost like operating system upgrades. They're really distinct. They change step by step by step, and they're completely different. And like in an operating system, the way you interpret the world all of a sudden changes. Now, most young adults are delivered into the world as what we call socialized. In the operating system paradigm, I would call it 3.0. These are people that all of a sudden, where I said those young kids, they are their needs, right? Most of us, when we go out into the world, we own our own needs for the benefit of the tribe. Whether that is our family, our organization, literally our tribe, the company we belong to, whatever it is. So we are able to have emotions, have needs, and discuss about them. Maybe postpone them for a bit in order to benefit the rest of the group. So I would call that level 3.0. Most adults are here. They are very effective. If you have a recent graduate from high school, they would be typically in here, right? Young adults. They're able to benefit the group. They also breathe and live the values, the mission, the strategies of that same group or tribe, right? They constantly look around them. Am I doing it right? Do I need to change? So they're really impacted by how the world thinks of them. They don't yet have their own agenda. So most adults are here. But what we see is that there's actually a portion of adults who can rise beyond this. A portion of adults, it's probably less than 25%. They are able to go from what we call socialized to what we call self-authored. It's a difficult name for saying these people have more of their own agenda. These people are able to not look around them as much. These people are able to think for themselves, not just live and breathe the values of the tribe or the strategy of the company, but say, hey, that's one strategy. Maybe I can have my own. I could think about people like maybe Steve Jobs or Elon Musk in this category. It's less than 25% of adults who are in this category, but they're twice as effective as any other adult. So that's significant. And these people, they're the effective change makers. They're people we really need to drive this innovation, right? To make change happen. At the same time, there's something aggressive about them. It's my way or the highway. I can't imagine stepping up to Steve Jobs, working for him and then saying, no, we're not going to do that. Probably doesn't happen, right? So there's something very strong in them. It's my way or the highway. So now it's not the mission of the tribe, but it's just my mission. These people are able to see a little bit more grayscales in between the black and white. But still. Then there's a very small portion of the world. It's less than 5% that managed to outgrow even that. It's less than 5% of adults, but they're 9 times more effective. These are people that are a little bit softer. I can think of people like Satya, who runs Microsoft, or Jacinda Ardern, who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. People who have a mission, have their own values, but they're able to drive that forward with real strength while they're being compassionate for the fact that other people might have a different direction. They're able to understand that not everything goes as fast as they want it. Not everything should even probably go the way they want it. Maybe some things go a little bit differently. It's not just that they see gray scales between the black and white, but they understand that white only exists because black exists. So if we go back to those pictures I shared earlier, and then it will become clear why I told this, is I'm arguing problems are becoming more complicated. We're more on the right side of this image, where it's all about innovation, all about impact. And unfortunately, only the people who are in operating system 4.0 and 5.0 are the ones who can deal with this. So that's quite important. If only those people can deal with that state, then that's the call out for leaders that I was saying earlier. And if we think about that, it's for leaders, it's about being and doing, right? It's about what do I do? What is my strategy? What is the execution of that strategy? And who am I being? And what I'm arguing is, on the doing side, we probably need to be more driving towards innovation. We need to be more looking at impact. So we need to do things like design thinking, systems thinking. We need to focus on purpose, maybe self-organization. But in the doing, or in the being, we really need to make a shift. We really need to start making personal shifts. This is not about more knowledge. I told you about this is operating system upgrades. You don't get an operating system upgrade by downloading a bit more data. It's not about knowledge. It's really about shifting from having to know the answer to really exploring, from only wanting to win to really collaborating, from management to co-creation. And that's a huge shift that, in my mind, leaders have to make.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I still have a lot of questions. So I would like to invite the audience, actually, if they have any questions. But meanwhile, something that's been on my mind, you spoke about change. So we have all experienced the change that none of us were expecting, COVID-19. How would a change like COVID-19 play into what you have described in terms of, the transformational leadership, etc.? Or
yeah, I remember the image I showed in the beginning of that whirlwind of change around us. COVID-19 was a big storm in there, or it was a big storm like that. I think it forces all of us to be more nimble as organizations, more agile, more innovative. Those companies that are responding well are the companies that are innovating fast, right? So I would say in these times, we need even more innovation. We need to take even more responsibility for the people around us, because COVID-19 is not just hitting my organizations or yours. It's also hitting our neighbors and the people in our communities. And it requires this new mindset, or this upgrade, if you will. It requires you to continuously explore. If you hold too much on to knowing the answer, to just winning without collaborating, to just manage without truly co-creating and showing leadership, it's going to be really, really tough. So I think it only accelerates the need for companies to shift and for leaders to shift.
All right, that's very interesting. But then, you seem to be saying as if all leaders have to become the same, as if they're painted with the same brush. How does this work? Do we all have to become just a clone of a certain type of leader?
Yeah. So this is only one aspect of leadership, right? If I think about an upgrade on my phone, an operating system upgrade on my phone, you and I probably both have the latest iOS from Apple or from Samsung or whatever company that we have our phone. And that allows us, every upgrade allows us to do more faster. That doesn't mean you have the same apps. That doesn't mean you download the same data or files. So as an individual leader, we all have our own style. I might be more extrovert than somebody else. Somebody else might be better at analyzing data. Somebody else might be better at judging things that are complicated in relationships. So all leaders are very different and have different strengths. At the same time, it's just a pity not to upgrade if you can, if it allows you to do more. And like in nature, some things are most of the time really true. Like gravity kind of works on all places on planet Earth. If you zoom into it, it's a little bit different here and there, but gravity is a good rule of thumb to use most of the time. In the same way, for all of us, if we believe that our organization is in a more complicated domain, then for us to upgrade our leadership is kind of necessary. And in the same way that most of us grew vertically from a young child to a young adult, adults can continue to develop. It's not vertically, unfortunately for myself, it's mostly in other directions, but it's also up here in our operating system. And that's a truth that is the same for every leader. And in that sense, yes, I am painting every leader with the same brush on that very specific dimension.
All right. Any questions from the audience? Please feel free to post them now. I see one that's looking interesting. So you have presented a limited set of situations. So how is this useful for leaders facing something unprecedented?
Yeah, so one is it's always contextual, right? There might be very good reasons for some companies to be mainly focused on efficiency. Like the warehouses of Amazon, maybe it makes sense for them to focus mainly on efficiency, or maybe a steel company, there's not that much innovation needed. Or maybe at this point in time, if I think about some investments where you're really trying to prevent bankruptcy, it might be not the best place to really start thinking about innovation, responsibility. You really have to maybe cut costs as fast and as hard as you can. So in these unprecedented times, when COVID hits, for example, but I mean, there will be another COVID. It might not be a disease, it might be something else, but there will be a new wave of stress for all of us. And that will require all of us to continue to adapt, change, but it might not be all in the same way or all at the same time. So not every organization has to go through these steps. Some organizations may get stuck somewhere, and not every leader has to upgrade. As Bob Keegan said, right? It depends on where your organization needs to be. Informs where the leadership needs to be.
All right. I don't see many more questions coming from the audience, but I would like you to just give us a wrap up, perhaps. How do you upgrade? What can leaders do?
Yeah, I saw that question come in as well. I like that. So that's almost a very concrete question. Like, if I start tomorrow, what should I do? If I need to upgrade, if I want to upgrade, then what is it concretely that I can do?
So there's think that you're talking to the leaders in this, who are listening on this, and tell them something that they can really take home.
Yeah, thanks. So I think one is there's a couple of very concrete ways that people upgrade. It's not an easy process. One is to really help you reflect, whether that is through feedback, through coaching, by going through a learning journey somewhere, by people to play back what you do well or not well, maybe having a mentor. All of those kind of things help. But that's one of the tried and tested ways to help people upgrade. I think the second way is to go through tough life experiences. Now, those happen regardless to all of us, right? And we all know the stories of people that faced a disease, overwon it, and say, I came out for the better, or had trouble in specific relationships around them, and came out, maybe not with that same relationship or in a different way, but said, it was really tough for me, but I came out better. That I came out better, that's kind of an upgrade. And you can organize that for yourself. If you think about people who go out sailing, who go out on a walking tour, people who go visit one of the holy sites at a specific event, all of those things can help you upgrade. And then finally, we know from brain science, and we know that it's possible to trick your brain a little bit. There's a very specific set of regions in your brain that are called the DMN, the default mode network. There's 3 parts of your brain that together form that part. And if you deactivate the default mode network, that seems to be correlated to upgrading. And very concretely, how you can do that is by reflective practices like meditation, prayer, all kinds of reflective practices really seem to help there. The second thing that really seems to help there is taking care of other people. So there's three very concrete things you can do is these learning journeys, have people reflect on you, go through some kind of experiences that help you, and then reflective or meditative practices.
Yes, that's very interesting. Thank you. I see a couple more questions coming from the audience. I don't know if we'll have a chance to go through them all, but there is one that's quite contemporary that we're facing right now. So one of the viewers is asking about remote working, and is this going to be the new norm? And is this something better than working in the office, or worse? What are the drawbacks? And
yeah, it's an interesting question. We hear it a lot right now, and we work with quite a few organizations on this. One, remote work is here to stay. Maybe not 100%. And inshallah, you and I will be able to do this meeting next time in person somewhere with the group attending us. But remote work is here to stay in some way, shape, or form. That means a couple of things, because if we look at research, we see a couple of surprising things. One is people are as effective working remote as working in the office. In general, we don't see big changes there. Now, there might be certain professions and certain subsets of groups. In general, most people are as effective working from home, if not more. One thing that changes, though, is if people work remote for a long time, and we all feel this, that the connection is slipping away a little bit, right? The culture starts to change. And what we see from research is that the time that companies retain their staff goes down. So people switch companies faster. So there's real need to figure out ways to keep these people close, to continue to retain the culture, to find ways to really engage employees. So that's one that's quite important, because otherwise your cost of acquisition of employees will go up significantly. And obviously you face a brain drain if you lose people. Then the other thing is a couple of things are changing. One thing that's changing is the way we trust each other. So you and I typically trust each other because we're in the same room. We kind of touched, we spoke about some pleasantries, but now we dove into it immediately. So you got to find ways to recreate trust or do it in a slightly different way. Another thing is that we have to change how we think about designing workflows. So if we have designed our work around physical meetings that we are together, for example, we are in a project team, we come together, we do the work, and then we go apart. Right now, most of the people say, okay, what we used to do in physical meetings, we're now going to do in virtual meetings. It seems that's not always the most effective nor efficient solution. So redesigning the work in order to make use of new possibilities, to not do everything that we used to do synchronous at the same time together. Now do asynchronous. For example, rather than sitting together behind a whiteboard, we can do that online, but and do on a Zoom call and have maybe another sort of digital board. But actually, we can do it asynchronous. We can work in parallel on it. So we have to design not just what goes from offline to online, but also what goes from synchronous to asynchronous. And when you do more asynchronous, which is what most of us will start to be doing, we'll be using more documents, online tools, etc., to collaborate together. All of a sudden, skills are changing. Many of us on the call probably, and definitely you and I, we've been trained in a time when it was important to write long memos, long reports, long presentations. if we're doing asynchronous collaboration, then we have to be really good at being very short in our instructions. Adel, please do this. How do I write that in the right way? Now, luckily, our young people are used to Twitter and 140 or 280 characters. But for many people, that's a new skill that we need to develop.
And understanding the same too, understanding a very short message without a lot of elaboration is another
absolutely.
skill. Well, Mark, I would really like to thank you for your time and your insight. This was really very informative, not to mention a lot of fun. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope the audience has also enjoyed it. So thank you very much, and may I thank also all those who have joined us today, and we hope to see you soon in another webinar.
Thank you very much. It was a real honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.